Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, the podcast where we talk to people in the food space and other spaces, all the spaces of all the fun things. Kurt is my spouse, Kurt Johnson, and also the co-author of the Moon Tavern, a culinary romance with recipes. It is a fiction book that is available on your bookshelf now. Welcome to the podcast, Kurt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having the idea that we should work on a book together. I am, as many of you listening know, a cookbook writer, and my husband is a fiction writer. And somewhere along the way, we decided that maybe it would be good to collaborate together. Kurt, was it you or me that had the idea first? I think it was you.
Yeah, probably. I was kind of done with my past book, writing about Las Vegas and looking for something different. And we'd been traveling a lot. So going to Croatia, going to Italy, going out west, going to Turkey. So I wanted to incorporate travel with a novel. And I also wanted to incorporate food. And so I thought this would be a lot of fun since we're traveling together. We have those shared experiences, and you have the food experience and the food writing experience. So I thought it'd be a fun collaboration. And I've always liked the idea of love stories. Even my thriller books in Las Vegas had kind of a love story element. And it adds a dimension to a novel that, I don't know, makes it cohesive, makes it pull together in an emotional arc that's kind of fulfilling in the end.
Do you think you're a romantic at heart, or what is it about romances that are fun to write for you?
Maybe I'm a romance at heart. I may be more stoic than that, though. I like the idea of seeing people get together, seeing people enjoy the same interests, and finding people that can fall in love. Of course, that's always the fun part. The hard part is once you get married and move on from there and have to deal with kids and daily life and work and all the other things that go with living life. And that's not that much fun to write.
Yeah, exactly. We, as a couple, I think I can speak for me and you maybe on this one.
Yeah.
We've always had great experiences traveling. We're good traveling companions. We like the spirit of adventure. Did you know that Croatia would be the spot for the first fiction endeavor?
Yeah, I think that was a given since we'd been there 5 times and 4 times renting a sailboat and visiting the islands. And as you know, Stephanie, I'm just enamored with those islands. I think they're so beautiful. And there was one island we discovered out there, Lastovo, which is the furthest island out. So a lot of the sailors and tourists just never get there. They stay closer to shore. So, going out there the first time, this beautiful bay of Zaklopedia where, it's a protective cove with just beautiful turquoise water, and then taking the dinghy in, and then you walk up this path. I think it's about a 2-mile hike. And then you go over this ridge and this 16th, 15th century town opens up. At one point, maybe it had 10,000 residents. And when we first saw it, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it was abandoned. So it was a ghost town of 15th century buildings and churches and apartments in this beautiful valley of lush green foliage. So that's very picturesque. We had an incredible meal there of just simple anchovies and blitva. And for you people out there that don't know, blitva is ubiquitous in Croatia. And it's just spring potatoes with Swiss chard, but it's served with everything.
It is served with everything, and they sometimes have spinach, sometimes have like another type of green, but it's sort of like the potatoes are cooked till they're pretty soft, and then it's kind of mashed in a little bit. So it's not fully a mashed potato, and it's not fully a roasted potato. It's sort of a combination of both, but it is good.
Yeah. So it seemed such a exotic place, the island of Lastovo in Croatia, that it was a natural to place it there.
Can you tell a little bit of just an introduction of the story, like what people will find when they crack open the book?
Sure. It's about Vesna, who has a breakup with her live-in boyfriend, and they'd had a restaurant. She was a chef, a cookbook author, and had a restaurant, not unlike my dear wife, Stephanie. And she has a breakup, and she leaves Minneapolis to go to Croatia to uncover her heritage. She had been adopted from Croatia, specifically Dubrovnik, when her parents died in the Sur bombing of Dubrovnik in 1991. So she was adopted out of there and raised in Minnesota. So then she goes to Croatia and rediscovers her dark family secrets and meets Dinko Radic, who is a winery owner. And romance ensues, but she has a life still back in Minneapolis that she has to go back to and resolve.
When we talked about putting this first concept together, I see the world through food, like literally everything in sort of my life is framed by a meal, an experience, just the way that I see the world. It's always around food celebrations. And so did you know that that would work for this Croatia book? Because I didn't when you first brought it up. I was like, I can't be a Croatian grandma here and writing recipes about what at the time I perceived as like dumplings.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, frankly. And, so each chapter, there's 25 chapters, and each chapter in it has a description of cooking. And it's all Croatia cooking, Croatia recipes, all food we ate over the years where we were there. And then the idea of tagging on recipes was just kind of bringing it home. Like, here's the Croatia experience. Now here's how Stephanie would bring that back to the real world, which is here in the United States.
We have talked about doing a series of books. What is it about this genre that you think lends itself to other titles and other characters?
Well, it's an adventure book on one level, and there's always new places to visit. So the next book is based in Ponza, Italy, where we've been a couple times. And it's just beautiful island off the coast of Italy in the Mediterranean. And, Italian food, you go to Italy and what you remember is the pizza in Naples or the pasta in Rome and the bustecca up in the hills. That a way to experience a place is through food. And I like writing about new settings. It's not as interesting writing about Minnesota.
But you've written a lot about Las Vegas. You've had how many books about Las Vegas? 3?
Yeah, 3. Two of kind of a thriller two thrillers in a series, and then a book about RVing that ends up in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is an interesting place, and I lived there for 5 years running nightclubs and restaurants. And so 2 of the books are really about the underbelly of Las Vegas, which I was a part of in the nightclub scene back in the late 80s. So that's just flat out fun to write about. And Las Vegas is such a weirdo place that it's fun to bring that to life.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that the way you choose your stories is about place, because the first book, The Barrens, that you wrote with our daughter Ellie, inspired by her experiences as a canoe camper in the tundra, that's also based in place too. So place is sort of what starts you on these journeys, it seems like.
Yeah, something, you threw me a curveball because I never really thought about it, but you're exactly right. All these books start off with a setting, with a place, and then, the plots revolve around that. And there's just so many different, there's a finite number of really plots you can choose from. It's kind of like a piano keyboard has all the notes that you want to make up a music piece, the same way with plot structures. And so to take it to the next level, you really have to search out characters, and the characters are in a setting. So those two are inexplicably linked. Yeah, exactly. So, the two go hand in hand. So character and place really can set a novel apart.
Can you think of other books that you've written, or excuse me, no, not that you've written, that you've read, where place sort of started you off on this adventure?
Yeah, probably. I really love Beautiful Ruins, Jess Walters, yeah. And that starts off in Italy, kind of near Cinque Terre, and it's kind of the poor version of Cinque Terre where the tourists don't go. And it was such a fascinating story. And then they bring that all back to Hollywood and America, and it just works so well. But what really captures your imagination is the description of this little seaside community before the whole plot takes over.
I kind of think about that book, The Embarrassment of Mangoes.
Yeah.
when you and I first started sailing and going on these adventures, we read that book. It was about a couple that buys a boat and sails through the Caribbean, and she is discovering spices and fruits and vegetables and things that she's never eaten before. And I just loved that book. It was really what got me into sailing and thinking about how to make that our life and whether or not, we could buy a boat and do that. And
Right.
that boat really had a huge setting of place. Can you think of, like, I don't know, when I think of other books, there's very few books that I think about character first. I usually always think about the place. Maybe that's just something.
Or the plot too. Yeah, they're all just linked together, and you don't think about, well, you were saying you don't think about character as much?
Not really.
Yeah, it's funny. I think, the best books people say are character driven. But they're what's the word again?
Inextricably
Inextricably. I'm having trouble
linked.
with that. Linked. So, you pick a place and you pick a plot, and then you build these characters. The characters have to build around that plot. And so they kind of naturally flow. And I think if they're well written and honest, you shouldn't think of them, they're interesting characters, and you'll say, this is Rabbit in the Rabbit series, and you'll know, but you won't say, oh, that's just a great character. I don't know that I certainly, I'm probably deep into it, and I look at the craft a lot. So I can see where somebody has really spent some time to develop an honest character, or where, the narrative voice comes through, and a character comes to life through this first person narrative voice. So I see that a lot more.
People have a real, like, they can't believe you can write a book. Like the idea of the literal act of sitting down and writing and how that works. People fantasize about writing it, but then very few people do. What was it that got you over the hump from thinking about writing it to actually sitting down and doing it?
Well, selling our business and all of a sudden being able to free up time. Because for me, novel writing, and I think what was it, Grisham talked about, writing at 5 a.m. before he goes to work at 7. I just couldn't do that. I'm very focused on one thing. And so I needed to free up my time from work in order to get going. And then it was, can you put together, 1,000 or 1,500 words every day so that it links up into a novel, and have that, not only that discipline, but also have the creative juices to produce scenes almost every day. Because, like a good novel is created from 50 scenes. So I went from, writing a memoir that I probably won't publish, just to see if I can get, 1,000 words every day and put this together, to then writing Las Vegas Turnaround. And there I really just copied a lot of plot structures that I saw that I liked. And so it was easier for me to set up main characters, set up tertiary characters, subplots, because I had a blueprint from somebody else. And then once, you keep writing, you get muscle memory for it, and it becomes more natural, and actually more fun, because it becomes more organic. You'll follow characters through a town, and they'll meet somebody, and all of a sudden that person becomes a character in their universe, and they say something, and all of a sudden that takes off, and you have to follow it. Now, the woman's going to fall in love with the guy at the end, but getting there is the fun part. And
Right.
now I can do that a lot more organically.
If you are talking to any aspiring novel writers, what kind of advice do you have for them to get started?
Well, you got to lower your expectations, just because publishing is so hard,
Can you
to be.
elaborate on that?
Well, there's maybe 2 or 3 or 400 agents, most of them in New York City, and they're all trying to make a buck. And it's hard to make a buck off a debut writer. It helps if you're MFA and you're writing in a genre, because, let's say 70% of the books are read by women, and 70% of those are romances. And then men, the other 30%, probably 80% of what they read are, thrillers or mysteries. So if you can pick a genre, that always helps. But yeah, you have to be more thoughtful about it. And I think so many first time writers, once they get the discipline and put the words on a page, they write that first personal novel, and I wrote my memoir. And it's really 90% of those, people have they aspire for the great American novel, and it's too personal. It's too close to home. They can't break out from the reality of their lives to have fun with the plot and make things happen. So a lot of times these books, nothing happens. They're deeply emotional books where nothing happens, and they're excruciatingly boring. So you got to get past that phase, and then you got to look at it as a craft. And a big chunk of it's art, of course, whatever you want to call that, shedding light on the human experience. But a big chunk is craft. And I don't think you can get to the craft for most people in that first book. So you got to keep writing, and realize that the first couple books may not get published. So, the Barons got published. That was that was my third, fourth book, and the, the first three, two of them were duds that will never be published.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to chat with you about the book. We are in the marketing process of the book. I feel like books come in three waves. One is the idea that you're thinking about it. The second, the actual writing of it. And then the third is the marketing of it. What do you think's the hardest part?
Well, I mean, it's the hardest part's finding an agent and finding a publisher. Then if you self-publish, the hardest part is marketing. And at least it is for me because writing is so natural and fun for me. But I think for most people, the writing's the hard part. And like the Minnesota writer O'Brien, he hates writing. So he forces Tim O'Brien. So he forces himself to get those books out there. So probably that's the hardest part for him.
I had a cookbook, 2 cookbooks out, and I had a publisher, but they didn't publish this book because it was a fiction book. I think some people just assume like, oh, well, they've already had books out, but we self-published this book. Why did we make that decision from your standpoint?
Well, we couldn't get an A-list agent or a New York publisher. There's just not, it comes off as almost a debut book, and it's hard for them to make any money. So if you can't get an A-lister, then you're, stuck with boutique publishing companies and others, and they just don't support the marketing of your book. And I've self-published books in the past, so I know how to do it. I know how to put a professional product out there, and we can, both of us are marketers, and Stephanie has a large platform, so we can do a lot of our own marketing or outsource it, but still we retain most of the profits. So when we do the marketing, we can reinvest it or keep those profits.
Yeah, when you say profits, it sounds like there's a lot there. I'd like to.
I
I
mean,
mean, maybe.
Maybe we broke it even at this point, but then now we're looking at a marketing PR firm that's going to set us back another $5,000. But if these books succeed and somebody makes a lot of money, it's the third book that's going to put them over the top. It's not the first.
I have this idea too that we're going to write these books and then sooner or later someone's going to turn them into a TV series. Because it's going to be like The White Lotus, where each season is a different location and a different cast of characters, but sort of the general premise is sort of the same.
I hope so. I hope an A-list agent comes along and frees us from our servitude or whatever. And there's plenty of stories of self-published authors that get deals, or even boutique authors that get deals. So we can dream.
One thing that I'd like the listener to hear is what their part is in this, because I was leaving the coffee shop today. We're in Ely, i.e. the vacation backgrounds, but
right.
I was leaving the coffee shop today and a woman stopped me and said, Stephanie, I had the opportunity to read the Moon Tavern. It's so good. I loved it so much. And she's telling me about it and telling her friend. And I have that experience a lot where people have really, really enjoyed this book. And I just want the listener to know that leaving reviews on Goodreads or Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you bought the book, or if you can't find a book, asking for it at your local bookseller because they can always order it. When you're self-published, the more buzz you can create about these books, the better chance that someone will hear about it, someone will buy it, and eventually a publisher, if they hear about a book and they like it, then they may pick it up. So I think if you like what you're reading and you want to see more of this type of work in the world and books that you like, that's something that you can do to help us out.
Yes, a 5 on Amazon or top rating on any other place. And
Goodreads is good too.
Yeah, it's all good. So yes, those help a lot. Just because the more reviews you can get and the more 5-star reviews you get, the more people will pick up the book, the more buzz you'll get. So yes, it helps us immeasurably.
Another thing before we wrap up here, someone asked me about the cover of the book. Do you want to talk about how you picked the artwork?
Yeah, I was pretty much online. Z Reader, I think is her name.
Hmm.
And she's in St. Paul, and she's a muralist mostly. And I really liked the look that she had. So I reached out to her, and she did the original artwork. And then each chapter ends with a recipe, and there's a pen and ink drawing, and she did those. And I really think that adds another level to the book. And I love a beautiful cover.
Yeah, the cover is really nice. She did a great job. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of the podcast. I did just want to chat with you and give people a
Thanks.
little bit of background story. Thanks for being a guest. If you just, the way that this sub publishing software works is you hold on and you just give it a minute before you log off. Okay.
Okay.
All right.